Hello Seekers, thank you for joining me for episode 2 of Broken Shores. So where we left off last time, finished a fight with 4 rotting dead in Hex 2, and I'm going to start keeping track of notes here of each of our events and each day and weather. And I probably won't write most of this on camera, but I will use it as a way to give a recap of what happened. So day 1, we arrived in Armestos. In Hex 1, we got our mission. And then we went to Hex 2, we fought and defeated 4 rotting dead, and there was no loot, and we had clear weather. And so now we're going to move into Hex 3, but before we do that, I want to make a little note here about what happened in episode 1 with the rotting dead. I forgot to roll their armor. On their sheet, it says that you need to roll D4 for their armor, so that certainly would have given them a little bit more survivability, even with the great advantages that we had going for Corwin with the half-speed battlefield event and with the easy difficulty modifier. Okay, and then on the subject of time, so the squares, the hexes in Armestos are only 1 mile, so I was thinking that they were much bigger, maybe 10 miles or something, considering that these hexes are not very large, and also that in the standard rules of the game, you actually use your constitution score to inform how many hexes that you can actually move in a day. And on an average, you're probably going to have characters with around a score of 10 or so. So moving 10 or 12 hexes in a day is not completely unheard of. So what I'm actually going to be doing is I'm going to be using a 1/8 of time on this wheel here. 1, to use the wheel, but 2, because I do like to have it attached to a specific unit of time. And so we'll try going with that. I also do like the method of relating it to the Constitution as well, but we'll see how this goes using this. So when we left the base camp, we spent 1/8 unit to get to the Hex 2, and then we had the fight, so we'll say that was 1/8 unit for the fight. That would leave us here after the end of the fight, but we have now moved into Hex 3, so we're going to be right here, and that'll bring us to the end of close to the evening as we arrive in Hex 3. So let's look at Hex 3 and let's see what we have here. So Hex 3 is an ancient farmland, and the terrain here is the rotting underwater vegetation. So we can see that everything is very murky and swampy as it just emerged from out of the sea, out of the ocean. And of course there's a lot of rotting things here. And after centuries spent underwater, this whole area was once a large kelp forest, and the stench of rotting vegetation and marine life has attracted hundreds of seagulls who are now feasting on the remains of the dead fish. A character attempting to hunt here has a +30 to their survival skill, due to the almost impossibility of not striking a bird when attempting to take one down. So we would have a +30 to our hunting skill, and Corbin only has a skill of 31 for his survival, so that would give him a nice bonus there. So I think we should go ahead and hunt here. So let's do a hunt and see what we can get. And that's going to be a 3, so that will pass our hunting check, and that would give us 2 rations. So we will add 2 rations to our inventory here. Okay, so we're now going to have 12 rations. What else do we have going on here? So that's all that we can find in Hex 3. So we may want to move on to Hex 4, and I'm also putting a red circle around each hex that we have visited. So now we're going to move into Hex 4, so that's going to take another 1/8 unit of time there. But actually we just did hunting, so that hunting should be a full phase. So we'll go ahead and move up to here, and then we are now in the first phase of night as we arrive in Hex 4. So Hex 4, let's see what we have here. The enormous corpse of a whale has attracted hundreds of seagulls and crabs who are all feasting on its remains, and player characters can make a survival check to extract D6 crafting supplies from it. Now this would be a very good thing for us because we don't actually have any crafting supplies, and you need crafting supplies in order to camp. And seeing as we are about to draw to the end of 24-hour period, we are going to have to camp, and if we don't camp, we would have to do roll a survival check, and there are certain penalties for being however many hexes you are away from your base camp. And in this case, our base camp is the Egrastean base camp, the official base camp of this adventure here. And so we would be 1, 2, 3. We would be 3 hexes away. So there would be a penalty of either 3 rations or 3 times 2 hit points. So we would have a penalty of 6 hit points, or 3 rations if we failed that survival check. So what we can do is we can scavenge for these crafting supplies in the whale, but that would cost us a full phase here. I'm not sure if we could really say that we could do that and make the camp all in one phase without having to make the survival check. So I think either way we're going to have to make the survival check for being away from our base camp with no camp. So let's go ahead and first roll and see if we can get some crafting supplies. And if we can get crafting supplies, then we'll go ahead and set up a new base camp here in Hex 4. And we have rolled an 86, so we were not going to be successful in getting any crafting supplies. So now let's roll for a survival check. And that's going to be an 80, so we also fail our survival check. So I think what we'll do here is we are going to subtract 3 rations, and we are now down to 9 rations after failing that both of those survival checks, failing to get any crafting supplies from the whale, and then also failing our survival check for being away from our base camp. And we also need to go ahead and rest, so we're going to rest at least one full phase here. So we're going to have to rest until right here. So we have completed what there is to see in Hex 4. So let's go ahead and mark Hex 4 as being explored, and we are now going to move. We're now going to move over into Hex 5. And actually, you know what? Before we do that, we might want to try to get some crafting supplies once again. So we have already tried to do this with the whale here, but one thing that we can do is that we can scavenge for crafting supplies, and I believe there is no check associated with scavenging for crafting supplies. I wasn't able to find one in the manual, and as I said, in the core rules, it does not say that there's any check involved. It simply says to scavenge for materials. So I assume that you automatically can produce 2d6 crafting supplies. We do not have a scavenging skill. We do have a survival skill, which could be considered scavenging, but again, I don't see that it's connected in the manual. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to get 2d6 crafting supplies, and let's roll 2d6. And a 6 and a 5, so that's a nice roll there. That's going to give us 11 crafting supplies. So, and I believe it normally takes about 2 crafting supplies to attempt a camp, and there is a rule involved for attempting to make a camp, and there's also a table for mishaps in camp as well. And another thing that we need to do is we need to roll for our weather, because we have not rolled for weather today. Okay, so we're going to roll for our island weather, which is going to be a 2d6 roll, and we have rolled a 5 and a 4, and that's going to give us 9, which is going to be overcast. And there's not going to be anything negative associated with overcast, but for hot and storm, I have decided that there will be some negative things associated with that. So with hot, what that's going to do is it's going to double our travel time. So travel time would be a full phase instead of just a 1/8 phase, and that's sort of to simulate that Corbin here would have to move slower and take more breaks and drink more water and spend more time relaxing and resting as he moves on a hot day. And then with storm is also going to increase travel time by 2, just to reflect how dangerous it is to move in a storm. And it's also going to require a roll on a hazard table and I have made a small modification to the one of the hazard tables. We have a D6 hazard table here, which we could have a sorceress storm, a flash flood, falling debris, landslide, tornado, or a sinkhole, and those are all hazards that require a check to go along with them, a skill check. So that's what will happen if we get a storm. So alright, so today our weather is going to be overcast. We have moved into Hex 5. That's going to move us forward 1/8 unit here. Okay, so we have now arrived here in Hex 5. Hex 5, you can see right here, is over on the north coast of the island. And Hex 5 is the ancient quarry. And once again, we have the rotting underwater vegetation for our terrain here. And it says that there's a jagged expanse of shattered rock, once a quarry for the city's grand constructions. It lies now completely covered in rotten seaweed, and the shadows here seem to cling unnaturally. A ghoulish apparition known as the Stone Warden haunts this place, eternally guarding the remnants of a cursed artifact. Okay, so we have our Stone Warden here, and let's look at his profile. So he is an undead. He's got a 40% chance of dropping valuable loot. He has 12 horse. I almost said 12 horsepower. He's got 12 hit points, and he has D4 -1 armor. So I think we should go ahead and roll his armor right now, and that's a 2. So that would be 2 -1. So he's going to have 1 point of armor. There's one of them. And what is his attacks? He's got the Ethereal Grasp, which he has a 60% skill on, so it's pretty skilled. And that's going to be 2d4 +1 necrotic damage. He has a dodge of 40. He's immune to all morale effects, and he receives half damage from non-magical attacks. So that's pretty serious there. And he's a ghastly apparition that still clings to the remnants of their past life. So a pretty fearsome foe here. Certainly 1 armor is going to be a little bit tougher to deal with than our last fight. About the magical half damage from the non-magical attacks, that's also going to be pretty tough. For Corbin, he has an enchanted spear, which I believe would give it magical. In Ker Nethalas, it would work to give it magical damage, and so I'm trying to, by trying to bring in rules from Ker Nethalas, I think it would be better to consider this to be magical damage, but I'm not entirely sure what it would say in the base rules. Okay, so because this is an enchanted weapon, we will say that it would be a magical attack. I wasn't able to find anything really clear on that in the core rules for Broken Shores. So you guys can let me know how you would play that with the enchanted spear. Okay, so before we begin the fight, we're going to roll for the encounter difficulty. So we need to roll a d20 here to determine what our difficulty will be, and it's a 10, and that's going to be standard, so there will not be any changes with our difficulty. Pull up a match event here, and some of these events may not work with Broken Shores, but we'll try to see if we can get one, and we'll see if we can make it work, because it's certainly a lot of fun. Okay, so we've rolled a 10. A 10 is going to be no event. So I think from now on I will not roll them multiple times to try to get an event, but in the first episode I definitely wanted to show you an event, so we'll wait till our next battle, and hopefully we'll get to have another event again. So we are set up for our combat, and we can roll initiative, and we're going to do an opposed check, D100. Whoever has the highest roll wins. Corbin with his 15 dex has a +3 bonus, and the ancient, or the Stone Warden, he has 14 dex, so he's going to have a +2 bonus. And that's going to be an 86 for the Warden versus the 41 of Corbin, so the Warden will win the initiative here. Alright, so now for the Warden, his movement speed is going to be twice his dex, so he has a movement speed of 28 feet, And if he wanted to use a standard action, he could also go ahead and run. Okay, now if the Stone Warden chooses to run, he would have a movement speed of 56. So we'll just round that to 55 to make it simple here. So he'll be able to move 55 feet. So that's going to give him 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. So he can move right here, and he is very, very close to attack range, but not quite in range there yet. So that's going to be the first turn for the Stone Warden. And now Corwin is going to, he's going to just move into the melee range here and attack the Warden. So we will make a combat roll here. He's going to attack with the Enchanted Spear. And that is a 95 for Corwin, which is a failure there. And it's way over his skill. And then an 85 for the Warden, and he is also over his skill as well. And we did roll a 20 on the hit location, which would be a critical hit. Now, in this case, both have rolled above their skill, so what I would do in this case normally in Ker Nethalas is I would give the roll to the character who has the higher base skill value. Corwin has an attacking bonus of 10 for being the attacker, and that would give him a skill of 65 with the simple melee weapons. But he also has plus 20 when attacking with a one-handed. So that gives him a score of 85, which is still below 95. But in this case, his base skill would be 85, which is going to beat the 40 dodge of the Stone Warden. So Corwin will actually get to successfully attack here because it is a 20. So it is going to be a critical hit here. So we will roll double here, and that's going to be 2d6, 2d4 plus 2. So we've got 2d6 and 2d4. And that's just going to be, oh, we got 2 ones there, so that's 2 and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's going to be 11. And the Warden has a armor of 1. So that is going to be reduced to 10 damage, and the Warden's health started at 12, so he will now be at 2 hit points. It is going to be the Warden's turn to attack, and he is going to do the Ethereal Grasp attack. So let's roll for that. And the Warden has rolled a 61. Now with his attacker bonus, his skill is 70. So 61 is going to be a successful hit for him. And he has rolled 11 on the hit location, which is not going to be a critical hit. He needs a 19 or a 20 there. But we will roll for the standard hit here, which is going to be 2d4 plus 1 necrotic damage. So let's get 2d4. And that's going to be 3 plus 1 is going to be 4. So that would be 4 damage there from the Warden. And Corwin will go to 18 health points. Okay, so Corwin is now at 18. And now it will be Corwin's turn to attack. And we'll see if Corwin is able to finish the Warden here. And that's going to be an 87 for Corwin and an 82 for the Warden. So once again, so with Corwin's 87, he is once again over his attack because he would have to roll an 85 to be successful with his attack here. And so we'll go to who has the higher attack skill. So it's going to be the same as last round, which would be Corwin, but this time we do not have any critical hits. So we're just going to roll a standard damage here, which is going to be 1d6 plus 1d4 plus 1. So that's going to be 4 plus 1 is 5. And the Warden has 1 armor, so that will be reduced to 4. And the Warden had 2 hit points, so the Warden takes 4 damage, and the Warden has been defeated. And that will be the end of the Warden there. 40% chance of valuable loot dropping from the Warden. So let's see what happens here. So basically what we'll do for the 40% chance is we will roll a D100 roll trying to get 40 or less. And that's an 84, so we are not going to get any valuable loot from the Warden. Let's see what else we have here in the Ancient Quarry. It says that there is the Rage Stone, and this is -3 Charisma, plus 1 damage, and plus 10 attack skill. This small black stone, the size of a fist, glows with a unique reddish hue when touched. A character holding it in their possession, it's enough to have it in their bag, so we can hold it in our bag, immediately feels overtaken by rage, having problems holding a conversation or treating others without being extremely aggressive and offensive. So -3 charisma, but we have plus 1 damage and plus 10 attack skill. So really this is a nice thing for Corin, because he already has 3 charisma. His charisma is already very low, so we just take it down to 0. He's going to be probably the most repulsive person on Earth, but the plus 1 damage and the plus 10 attack skill is certainly very welcome there. And we're also going to get 1 standing for defeating the Stone Warden. So let's go ahead and write down here that we have this Rage Stone. Okay, so now Corin has the Rage Stone on here, and his charisma is now effectively 0, and he's going to have plus 1 damage and plus 10 attack. So I think Corin is totally fine with this Rage Stone. He likes it. He doesn't have any problem with it. And he already had trouble holding conversations and treating others in a way that they didn't find offensive. So it's just gonna be more of the same for Corin, pretty much. All right. So all in all, a fairly good battle there. And Corin did take a little bit of damage here, so he is at 18. And we're gonna want to look at making a camp and resting. So what should we do here now in Hex 5? So we could do some hunting or scavenging. So right now we could forage 2 rations if we successfully foraged, or we could do some fishing, and we could also scavenge for materials again. So I think in this case we might want to go ahead and try to set a camp, because if we do fail the camp check, we could still have a little bit of time maybe to move on and set camp again. I believe that you cannot set camp in the same location if you fail, but you could move on and set camp somewhere else. Okay, so I think that's what we should do, is we should go ahead and try to set camp. So let's see if Corin can make a survival check here. And 89, okay, so he will fail, and that will bring us over to the first phase of the night. And we also need to roll on the camp mishap table. So let's take a look at that. This is going to be rolling D10 here. And we rolled a 4. Okay, so a 4 is going to be that the chosen site is not ideal. There's too much wind, exposure to the elements, or some similar problems with the camp that makes it that we need to move it to a different location. And nobody manages to sleep, resulting in each character gaining 1 level of fatigue and not recovering any spent power points. Okay, so we now need to add a point of fatigue, and let's see where we can record that. Fatigue down here. So we now have a point of fatigue. So I think the best thing to do is to attempt to camp again, but we will have to move into another hex to do that. So let's move over into Hex 4, and that's going to take another 1/8 of time here. Now, when we cross this line, making 24, that's when we have to make a survival check due to not camping. And that would be like we did last time. So, alright, so now we are in Hex 4. I'm going to put an X on there to show that that's where we are. And let's make another survival check. So rolling D100. And that is a 28. So this time we are successful in setting camp. And finally, almost at the beginning of our third day here on the island, we have finally successfully set a camp here in Hex 4. So Hex 4 is now going to be our base camp, which is going to give us a little bit more flexibility to move out in this area and still be able to move back into Hex 4 at the end of the day, possibly. Alright, so now that we have the camp set, we can also make a roll to improve our ranged weapons, because we had some critical hits with that, some doubles with that in the we rolled doubles with that in the first episode when fighting the Rotting Dead. Okay, so normally in the core rules of Broken Shores, you would get a chance to increase a skill that you marked for improvement when you finish your session, but I'm going to play that the way that you do it in Ker Nethalas, which is that when you camp, you get a chance to improve your skills that you have marked for improvement. And so in the base game, so if you roll below the skill check, then you have the chance to increase your skill. You would increase it by 1 point, but what I'm going to do is actually the way that it is done in Carnage and Aether, which is that you're going to make a skill check. You have to roll above your skill score, and that would increase your skill by D4. If you roll below, it would increase the skill by 1. So no matter what, you get to increase the skill at least by 1 point. So what we'll do here is we're going to try to roll above 55 here. And that is a 67, so we will roll above 55. So we will increase, we will get a chance to increase by D4 here. My D4 got stuck inside of the tower, so we'll roll that again. Okay, so that's just a 1 there. So ranged weapons will now go up by 1. So we're now at 56 on ranged weapons, and we also get to fill in 1 square on the attribute track improvement for dexterity. So when you increase a whole line here, your dexterity will go up, and you can also acquire a new talent as well. So now if we want to heal our hit points, we need to rest for a full day actually. So we would rest all 1 full 24-hour cycle here, and that would allow us to heal up 3 hit points. So in this case we have 4 hit points that we need to heal, but we'll go ahead and just call it 1 whole cycle here. Actually, I think we should probably roll for weather too before we go ahead and advance a whole day. So let's roll for weather right now. Okay, so we're going to roll 2d6 for weather before we advance the day. And that is going to be a 4, which is going to be clear. So we have clear weather as we camp, and the day advances. We are now into day 4, and we'll go ahead and roll weather for this day as well. And that is 8, which is going to be overcast. So we're going to have overcast weather again here on day 4. So Corin has completed his camping. His health will be healed up to 21. And now Corwin is ready to continue on exploring the island with his new base camp here at Hex 4. So I think that's going to complete our episode here today. And I want to thank you very much for watching. And please join me next time as we continue to explore Armestus.